Who is the strangest person you've ever met? Years ago when I worked at a shipping and copying place, similar to Kinko's, a guy would come in every so often with stacks of newspapers. He would cut up parts of different articles and tape the sections together to form his own stories, then run what he made through the copier to make it look like it was one actual article. He would then show them to me and tell me they were about him. Usually the finished article was a combination of world news about terrorism and the sports section. The overall story was that he is a CIA agent fighting terrorism and his cover was being the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. I used to work the drive-thru at a Del Taco that was open 24 hours a day. I had several odd experiences with a regular who came in about once a week towards the end of my employment there. Experience 1. Man comes to window and asks if our bean and cheese burrito is organic. I say probably not, but I'm not sure. He decides that this means they absolutely must be 100% organic and orders 3 of them. Experience 2. Same man comes to window shirtless. He explains that he is only shirtless because he was sweating profusely moments earlier at 2 AM and proceeds to hold a soaking wet shirt up to the window for me to touch as proof. Experience 3. Same man comes to window, does not order anything, but tells me he is very happy that we are open 24 hours a day because he is only awake at night. Experience 4. Same man comes to window to tell me about a yoga studio he has been frequenting because they are open until 3 AM. He suggests I check it out. He does not order his usual organic bean and cheese burrito, but rather our fish tacos because he has decided to only eat fish. Very nice man. Very strange man. Edit. Wow. Thanks so much for my very first gold. It's funny sometimes how a person can be so weird and eccentric, but not set off any red flags. Like, that's just who they are. Ick now? The sort of person you remember every now and then, with a chuckle and a shake of the head. I went to a wilderness survival school and there was this guy there named Charlie who never wore a shirt, rode this really beat up motorcycle everywhere, and mined Bitcoin for a living. He didn't bring a tent, so he slept on a tarp on the ground for the whole week, and ate canned beans, even though we provided meals. He cried a lot, and hugged everyone at the end of the week. Charlie was pretty cool tbh. In my small hometown, there was this guy called Waving Dave. Waving Dave would walk the 15-mile stretch between the 3 towns we had in the area on the highway and wave at all of the cars. Back in the 1970s, WD's parents died, and he inherited tons of money. Not knowing how to be responsible with said money, he went and boiled his brain on drugs. He was left in a permanent state of bliss, and because he couldn't keep a job, he spent his days walking and waving. In Norwich, England. In the 1980s, a black dude used to wear bright yellow rubber gloves and stand by the road waving and directing traffic. Everyone knew him as Marigold because it was a popular brand of yellow gardening gloves. Rumor had it that he found his wife in bed with another man and the other guy struck him in the top of the head with an axe. He was lucky to survive and suffered brain damage, which led him to either think he was a traffic warden or just enjoy directing traffic. He died in the early 1990s. When I lived in Hawaii, I used to meet a lot of weirdos. It's hard to pick a winner out of all of them, but I'll go with the crazy Welsh guy for this entry. I was sitting at a bus stop reading when he approached me. Like to read, The caps lock is appropriate here because he always spoke like he just found out you were fucking his wife and he's just barely refraining from going completely ballistic. Oh yeah, I said. I have a book of poems I've written. Would you like to read them? I guess so, I said. He then thrust a manila folder at me, then added they are written backwards because they are about who the Jews stole time. Oh thanks, I said. I hope you like them, he said, then walked away. According to the writing on the packet, he was the co-president of the Hawaiian Welsh Astral Society, which met weekly at a nearby park. The poems began with photocopies of a bunch of news articles he had annotated with comments I couldn't make any sense of before getting into the poetry itself, which made no reference to Jews anywhere that I could see, but were dated in reverse chronology, which I guess is what he meant by them being written backwards. They were not very good poems. I called him John the Liar. He was a coworker of mine in college at a sporting goods store. He lied about everything, not just embellishing stories or adding a few extra details, just straight up lies. He would lie about what he ate for lunch, even though I saw him eat it. He told our manager that his dad was a 6'5" Marine who helped take down Osama bin Laden, and then an hour later he told me his dad was a quadriplegic and had been for 30 years. Then he told me he got an override from the administration to take 24 credits one semester as a biology major. Then I found out he was still in high school. It was absolutely psychotic. I finally had to confront him about it when he started telling customers the completely wrong specs on all the guns we carried. He just lied some more and said that I was wrong or that I misunderstood him. Eventually I had to ask my supervisor to schedule me on a different shift because I couldn't take it anymore. 2-year deployment with a very similar personality. He was in my squad. For a portion of our deployment our mission was base defense. This would sometimes require 8 to 12-hour shifts in a watchtower alone with him. This became unbearable. The squad leader focused the tower assignments around him to make sure nobody got stuck with him disproportionately. This all changed when we started a journal detailing the tales he told. The amount of stuff he owned was staggering. The places he had been and adventures he had were unbelievable. Some of my favorites: ejected from an F-16, shot buffalo from a moving train, recruited to play football by Notre Dame, owned a racehorse, a total of 14 different watercraft, several homes, a golf course. You get the idea. The journal became a competitive way to get him to say the wildest shit. After a shift we'd have a meeting to find out what he said. War is hell. I managed a bookstore for a long time, and you run into your share of weirdos there. I could tell a million stories. One of the weirdest was this lady who came in a few times who would get dozens of books, browse through them, ask us to hold them, and then never ask to see them again or buy them. So we began just reshelving stuff immediately. One day she came in and took over this one sitting area. She had probably close to 100 books piled on the coffee table and the floor, and the other customers sitting there were clearly starting to get annoyed. I went over with a library cart and offered to take some of the books to the front of the store to hold onto them while she shopped. She said no. I said at the very least I needed to put the books on the cart because it was hazardous to have piles of books in the aisle. But when I knelt to pick them up, she grabbed my hands and slammed them on the table, pinning my wrists down, and legit snarled at me. I managed to stay calm and told her to get her hands off of me and told one of my co-managers who was nearby to call the police. When the police came, they asked me if I wanted to press charges for assault, but I said no. I just wanted her trespassed from the property. He wrote out a trespass order and she pulled a folder out where she had a stack of trespass orders from various local businesses and filed it alphabetically. I guess she got banned from so many places, she found it hard to keep track. The police ended up having to stay for a while because she kept circling her car through the parking lot and screaming obscenities at me. I don't remember everything she said, but I do know at one point she said "fuck you. You're not the real Princess Diana. I knew the real Princess Diana and you aren't her, motherfucker." It took us over an hour to reshelve all her goddamn books. I looked up her name online later when I got home. Turned out she was a prominent real estate agent the next city over. I cannot imagine showing up to an open house held by that lunatic. George. The first day I met him, he was rubbing his tummy under the shirt. It was weird, but not scary. I didn't think he was trying to be weird, just that he wanted to rub his tummy and this was the time to do it. Mere coincidence that we were speaking. One time he was shouting in his office, "Shut up slave, shut up slave," over and over. We couldn't tell what he was saying at first, but he left quickly towards the elevators and still shouting in the lobby. He would try to touch your elbow with his instead of a high five or anything. He'd have random outbursts, similar to the "shut up slave," but more contained. Like, he'd know his reaction was uncalled for, however he wasn't able to control what he was saying. As I got to know him more, I could tell that he was working on it and trying to get himself under control. However, I don't know if he's ever been diagnosed with anything. Edit. I don't know his diagnosis. He's also not your dad or grandpa, no kids. His name is not really George, and hope any of your friends and family get the help they need. George seems to be doing well and is working on these issues. Last we spoke, the cemetery groundskeeper in our hometown. He did a very good job The grounds were immaculate and perfectly landscaped, but he'd hover over people when they'd visited a grave, as if he didn't want anyone in his cemetery. People wondered why he'd have his lunch inside the mausoleum on the grounds on sunny days instead of being outdoors. He'd say, "I prefer being with the dead than with the living." I'm not saying what he says is right, but I get it. Right. The dead can't repeatedly disappoint you. Hi Dad.